What's up, guys? It's Smoshy from youtube.com/Smoshy and twitch.tv/xsmoshy, and today I bring you the 5 rules to securing a win. I'm going to take you step by step from the moment you land to that final 1v1. If you follow these 5 rules, you will increase your chances to win and maximize the points you gain. So let's head on into the plane and get this started. The first rule to securing a win is knowing where to land and where to loot. When deciding on your location, keep a few things in mind. Remember where the plane is heading. I'll talk more on this later. Do not immediately eject from the plane, and ride the plane until the very end. Staying far from other players is very important to surviving the most dangerous part of any Battle Royale game, the looting phase. This is the most random part of the game because loot spawns randomly. So what we're going to do is find a spot on the map where other players will not be. If need be, we will find a vehicle and drive to either the northern or southern part of the map so that we will have an entire town to loot all to ourselves. Your goal during the looting phase is to obviously find a rifle with plenty of ammunition, but to also find enough medical supplies to sustain yourself the entire game without needing to loot. You're also looking for a rifle suppressor and a 4x scope. An 8x will also work. If you're unsure on which weapon to equip, I'll make a separate video on that in the future, but for now remember that you can click on a weapon currently equipped to view its stats. An M4 has the least amount of recoil, but also does the least amount of damage. The AKM has the most recoil, but does the most amount of damage. So choose your preference. By now, you should have plenty of supplies, which leads us into our next rule to securing a win, playing the circle. Understanding the circle is a fundamental part of winning in Rules of Survival. Knowing how fast it moves and how much damage it will allow you more time to loot and scout the area for potential threats. Remember that the biggest part of the blue circle in relation to the white circle will move much faster than if you were on the opposite side, where you will not have to travel as far to enter the safe zone or the white circle. Also, keep in mind that running with your melee weapon is not only faster, but will not show your footsteps on your enemy's compass. Remember when I asked you to remember where the plane is heading? Now you can use this information to have an idea of where players are looting and where they'll be moving to next. Most players will only land directly underneath the plane or within parachute range. Most players will not get a vehicle and drive somewhere to loot. So now you can stay to the north, south, east, or west of the circle, depending on where the plane traveled. You should be avoiding vehicles after the looting phase because they're very easy to hear and spot. The map is big, but not big enough for you to need a vehicle. You should rarely find yourself far outside the circle, but if you happen to be caught off guard for whatever reason, remember that the first couple circles do not deal a huge amount of damage. You can easily drink an energy drink and be just fine. There are many different strategies you can use after the looting phase, but the one we're going to use is called edge camping. What this means is we're going to hug the edge of the blue circle and slowly work our way in or around to the new circle while catching players off guard who may be moving into the new circle. This also protects our back from enemies most of the time, but keep in mind that there will occasionally be players outside of the white circle, so remember to check your back from time to time. When moving around the edge, keep a close eye on the grass. There are a lot of players who like to lay in the grass. We call them snakes. Don't forget to crouch to avoid detection. If you're playing at night, enemy players and weapons will shine or shimmer to show you their location, and be aware of your surroundings. While doing this, try to remember the next rule, which is using the environment. There are trees, rocks, and mountains that provide great cover from other players. Knowing how to use these are super important. Not only will you be using them for cover during a firefight, but you'll also be using them to hide behind while scouting the area, moving into a new circle, and healing behind if you get into trouble. Remember that this game is third person, so you'll often see players that will not be able to see you, and vice versa. This leads into the 4th rule, which is one of the most important: knowing how to traverse the map. Knowing where to move, what to avoid, when to engage an enemy, and just generally knowing how to move about without being spotted, being flanked, or getting caught off guard is going to increase your chances to win by a huge margin. There's a lot to cover, so I'll do my best to explain. When deciding where you're going to move next, remember these few tips. Avoid open fields. You're just going to be a free kill for anyone who's in the area. Avoid towns and buildings in general. There are a lot of building campers in this game whose strategy is to sit in a house and wait for players to enter or run by. Instead, we're going to stick to the high ground. Remember how I said this game was third person? Well, being on top of a hill will allow us to look down the hill without being spotted by players. Remember that crouching will decrease your chances of being spotted and make you a smaller target. Another good tip is that crouch walking or crouch running will not show your footsteps on your enemy's compass at the top of their screen. This is a good tip to follow when you think an enemy is in your area and you're trying to get the jump on them. When engaging an enemy, remember to have proper cover before firing your weapon. If they do fire back on you, they may not always have a silenced weapon, so any enemies in the area will start to move in on your location. Having cover not only protects you from your current threat, but any further threats. By being near the edge of the blue circle, you decrease the chance of being flanked or caught off guard, since you can most likely eliminate the possibility of players being outside of the safe zone, especially towards the end of the game where it will hurt much worse. If you do happen to get caught off guard, remember not to prone when shot at. The grass is not bulletproof and you're not hidden. You make yourself a stationary target and a free kill. Instead, find the nearest cover. If no cover is available, feel free to jump, turn, and engage the enemy. By now, there should be a few players left. Try and maintain good cover and stay well hidden. Try to avoid proning, since if you are spotted and shot at, the animation time it takes to stand back up is far too long. Also, try to avoid bushes as well. Those will not stop a bullet and do not make for good cover. Try and find solid objects to use as cover. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You now enter the final phase in our final rule, winning the 1v1. You didn't come this far to just die to the final player, but neither did the final enemy. He too made it to the end, so we should give him credit and treat him as if he's the best player in the world. Although most of the time it's just a camper that crawled his way to the end. Depending on where the circle is, we may or may not have to move, but the first thing we want to do is establish visual contact. If we can spot him, great, now we know where he is, but sometimes we won't. Instead, we have to use our instinct and process of elimination. As you are moving through the zone leading up to this 1v1, you should have a general idea of where he is or is not located. All players are different. Some like to hide in the only house inside the white circle, some like to lay in the grass, use good cover, or, like us, hang out around the edge. So if you've been paying attention, you'll know what we'll do next. We're going to slowly move around the edge of the circle, crouched, while checking trees, rocks, and the grass. Remember to use high ground if available, but also keep in mind they may also be using high ground and will spot you moving up the hill if they are a good player. So scout the area the best you can before moving in. Grenades can be useful, however they may give away your position, so use with caution. Once you spot the player, wait for a good opportunity to engage. Use your superior gun skill and cover to take him out and get the win. If at first you do not succeed, try again. Battle Royale has a lot of random factors, so sometimes they do not work in your favor. But with a little bit of practice, experience, and following these 5 rules, you'll soon find yourself claiming victory time and time again. So get out there, farm them points, get those wins, and don't forget the rules of survival.